Hello and welcome to Bespoke Unit. I'm Rafael, and in today's video I'm going to be doing an in-depth review of the Seiko 5 Sports reference SRPD87. The SRPD87 is a steel case, blue bezel, blue sunray dial watch that also is presented on a blue NATO strap. Now, there's a ton more details that I'm going to go over, so let's go ahead and get started with the review. And here we see it on the wrist, the Seiko 5 Sports SRPD87. Very good looking watch, very sporty, especially on that NATO strap. Not necessarily a small watch, but I don't have the biggest wrist in the world either, so that's not going to help it look any smaller. Speaking of dimensions, let's get into the specifics. So on paper, this watch is 42.5 millimeters in diameter. Let's make sure I'm measuring that. At least as close as I can get. Yep, that looks about right. The lug to lug is going to be 46. That sounds about right. The thickness is 13.4. Yep, again, right on the money. And lastly, and especially for this NATO version, let's say, the strap size, 22 millimeters. So very, very easy to change the strap on it if that's what you wish to do. And often these NATO straps lend themselves to be switched in and out. It's so easy, and with just probably a minute of your time, you can change the look of a watch completely. Now, taking a closer look at the case, we can see that this is the traditional SKX and, of course, now Seiko 5 Sports case design. It has polished case flanks. You do have our 4 o'clock crown and those famous crown guards. The tops of the lugs and the top of the case is brushed steel with a nice edge here, a nice bevel for some slight contrast. Even though it's polished and the side of it's polished, it does offer a bit of contrast there. Our bezel is, of course, a traditional unidirectional diver's bezel. You can hear there the click. It's not, maybe it's a little stiff right now. I haven't used the bezel very much. Nevertheless, it does seem to be quite precise. I guess let's go back around. I did have to push it back, so not too bad. We can see the bezel insert almost is a purple bluish. I wouldn't say necessarily the same color as my shirt, though now that we're here, let's give this a good wipe so that we can get a better look. Nevertheless, a very deep blue. I think that angle right there is probably catching it in the best hue. Of course, not everything comes through perfectly on camera, but nevertheless, a beautiful, beautiful blue. Of course, matches not only the strap, but the dial in this case. Before getting into more details on the dial, you can see the knurling here on the bezel. Again, this comes from the beloved SKX. Evidently, it worked over on that model line and works here. The crystal is going to be hardlex, so that's scratch resistant and shatterproof, which is two great characteristics, or they are two great characteristics on a sports watch such as this one. Taking a closer look at the dial, and I do want to get up close here, you can see it's a blue sunray. It almost looks purple, same as the bezel at times. And unfortunately, I'm indoors now, but where this dial really shines on this watch overall is outside. And just the colors just come alive. We also have, or you can see that there are applied hour indices there, plenty of lume, and those hour indices are going to be polished steel. Same as the hands at center, they're also polished steel with tons of lume. And we have there a lollipop style second hand, which has half of it painted black to provide some very, very nice contrast. Now you'll see some printing here at the bottom of the dial that says Movement Japan. And what that means is that the movement was made in Japan. Perhaps more importantly to some collectors, I don't really mind if the piece is made in Japan or not Japan. There are some collectors where, you know, they really want a Seiko, or I mean a Japanese branded piece such as a Seiko, they really want that watch to be made in Japan. And obviously Seiko does offer that. They do offer this same model made completely in Japan. I actually have it, although not on the strap. You can see here that printing says made in Japan versus Movement Japan. So on the left here, our SRPD87 is going to have a movement that's made in Japan, whereas the one here on my right, which is the SBSA 001, the entire timepiece is made in Japan. Nevertheless, they're the same piece. You can't get this timepiece on the bracelet too, so it's not like that's what differentiates them. It's just knowing or having it be indicated on the timepiece where exactly it was made. Now, since this is a Japanese movement timepiece, it seems like the majority of them will have, all the Seiko 5 Sports have 2 languages on the date, and I'm about to show you what I mean. So check out there the day, Monday and Lunes, so that this has both English and Spanish, and the Movement Japan Seiko 5 Sports versions usually have that. Whereas our Made in Japan version has obviously Japanese and English. So there is a slight difference there. Perhaps some collectors prefer that. I know there's likely to be a price premium to be paid, so that's not really something you care about. You can save some money and go for this one. I'm going to remove the strap here so that we can get a better look at the case back and the new Seiko 4R36 movement, which can be seen through this clear case back. And again, very, very good looking movement in my opinion, especially at this price. Usually you don't see any kind of finishing or any kind of not architecture, but you know, texture on these movements, or not at this price point, but Seiko has done a pretty good job. You can see that even on the movement you have brushed the top of the bridge and polished the edges of it, which is, I think, is a very nice detail. And once more, you can see here on the crystal or the case back itself that it says Movement Japan. Now this movement, as far as accuracy, it's going to be plus 45, minus 35 seconds per day. And it's going to have a 41-hour power reserve. So if you leave it sitting overnight, it'll still be going in the morning. Now, let me put the strap back on. Some more points on this movement is the fact that, well, this crown, as you can see, I'm able to rotate it, so it's clearly not a screw down crown, but what it does allow us to do is wind it at this position. So at this point, when the crown is what I call position 0, all the way into the case, the watch is water resistant to 100 meters. Now, of course, if you ever open the crown, you lose any kind of water resistance because you're essentially giving the water access into the movement and likely leading to the death of your watch, or at least to an expensive service. But anyways, I'm back in position 0 and I'm going to wind it here, and I'm going to shut up so that you can hear. That's rotating clockwise. I'm winding the movement, and then counterclockwise. You can hopefully hear that there's no sound, and that's because it's not doing anything. But if you leave the watch sitting for a long time, obviously the automatic watches, as you can see here, they do have that what's called a winding rotor. And so with the movement, you can see it moving in there. With the movement of your wrist, it's going to essentially charge up the movement. Now, if you leave the watch sitting on a bedside table, for example, the watch it's going to lose all power and stop ticking. Now, in watches where you don't have this hand winding feature, you literally have to put on the watch. It has the wrong time. You have to wear it around till it charges up a bit, and then you can set the time. Now with this function, you could pick it up, it's dead, You give it maybe, 15 or 20 spins to give it a good amount of power. You're able to set the time and you're good to go. Now one more thing here, you can see that when I pulled the crown out to the second position, so 0, 1 is for changing the day and date, and then position 2 is for changing the time, the seconds stopped, and that's called hacking seconds. And what that allows you to do is to set the time super accurately. So let's say I go online and I find some sort of website that tells me exactly what the time is in my time zone. I can wait till it lines up, and then it starts ticking. There you have it. That's our review of this Seiko 5 Sports Reference SRPD87. Now, if that left you with any questions or comments, make sure to leave them below. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Also in the description are a couple of links to sales listings of this SRPD87. While this watch is still in production, you may find a deal depending on who's selling it and when you check. Anyways, I'm Rafael, this is Bespoke Unit, thanks for watching.